The star charts had remained unchanged for 7,000 years. In the lower spiral arm of the galaxy, where young stars burned hot and asteroid fields drifted like cosmic gravel, there existed a zone marked only by a simple notation: dead space, no strategic value. The 16 civilizations that comprised the galactic assembly had long since dismissed this sector. Early survey teams reported unusual electromagnetic interference, radiation patterns incompatible with life, and a complete absence of useful resources. The reports gathered dust in forgotten archives while empires rose, fell, and rose again. Commander Tevik Mordain of the Kellyan Empire never paid attention to dead zones. His species had mapped 70% of known space, established trade routes with 11 different alien governments, and built a fleet that rivaled even the ancient Cytherian dynasty. The Kellyans were explorers, warriors, merchants. They had no time for empty sectors that offered nothing. But that changed on the day the darkness came. Tevik stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Horizon, studying reports that made no sense. 3 colony worlds had gone silent in the past week. Not destroyed, simply gone. No debris fields, no distress signals, no survivors. Just silence where vibrant civilizations had thrived for centuries. His second officer, a young Kellyan named Brex Hallen, approached with trembling hands clutching a datapad. Commander, the Cytherian High Council reports similar incidents. 12 of their outer worlds have vanished. Brex's voice cracked slightly. They're calling it an attack, but there's no evidence of weapons. The planets are just gone, consumed by something they can't identify. Tevik felt ice spread through his veins. The Cytherians were the oldest civilization in the galaxy, their technology legendary, their warriors unmatched. If they couldn't identify the threat, then something truly terrible had awakened. Over the following weeks, the pattern became horrifyingly clear. The attacks followed a systematic path, moving from the outer rim toward the galactic core. Whatever this force was, it didn't conquer or enslave. It erased. Entire star systems vanished into expanding fields of absolute darkness that consumed light itself. The Galactic Assembly convened emergency sessions. Scientists proposed theories ranging from dimensional incursions to ancient weapons left behind by extinct races. Military commanders scrambled to establish defensive perimeters. Nothing worked. Every fleet sent to confront the darkness never returned. Every defensive station was swallowed whole. The entity, which terrified survivors began calling the Devourers, moved with relentless efficiency. Panic spread faster than the darkness itself. Civilizations that had warred for millennia now begged each other for help. But help wasn't coming. Tevik found himself studying old star charts, searching desperately for some advantage, some overlooked system that might offer refuge or resources. His eyes kept drifting to that notation in the lower spiral arm. Dead space. A worthless sector that every civilization had ignored for thousands of years. But then something changed. His long-range sensors, pushed to maximum range while searching for evacuation routes, picked up something impossible. Deep within the dead space zone, energy signatures flickered. Not natural radiation, not stellar phenomena. Organized pulses. Patterns. Technology. That's impossible, Brex whispered, staring at the readings. There's nothing alive in that sector. The surveys confirmed it 7,000 years ago. Tevik's mind raced. The Devourers were now only weeks away from Kellyan Prime. His people were preparing for evacuation, but there was nowhere to evacuate to. Every safe haven was either already consumed or next in line. This strange signal from the dead space might be their only hope. Prepare a probe, Tevik ordered. I want detailed scans of that sector. If there's anyone out there, they might be our last chance. The probe launched within hours, diving into the electromagnetic storm that surrounded the dead space sector. Tevik expected it to fail like all previous attempts. Instead, it penetrated deeper than any probe had ever managed. The data that returned made his heart stop. Hidden behind the natural interference were structures. Thousands of them. Space stations, shipyards, defensive platforms, all operating under some kind of advanced stealth technology that made them nearly invisible. And more terrifying, more beautiful than anything Tevik had ever seen, ships. Massive vessels unlike any design in the galactic database, arranged in perfect formations that suggested military precision. How many ships? Tevik demanded. Brex's voice was barely a whisper. Early estimates suggest, over 2,000, Commander. Tevik stared at the data, his mind struggling to accept what his eyes showed him. The dead space wasn't dead. It was sleeping. And whatever civilization had hidden there for millennia possessed technology that made the entire galactic assembly look primitive by comparison. He opened a communication channel, broadcasting on every frequency toward that hidden sector. His message was simple, desperate, and honest. This is Commander Tevik Mordain of the Kellyan Empire. Our galaxy is dying. We are being hunted by something we cannot fight. If anyone can hear this message, if anyone is out there in the darkness, we need help. Please. Before there's nothing left to save. The response that came back, after a long silence, was in perfect Kellyan language, despite the fact that humans should have no knowledge of it. The voice was calm, measured, and carried the weight of millennia. Message received, Commander Mordain. We have been watching. We have been waiting. And now, we are ready. Captain Helena Voss floated in the observation dome of Station Sentinel-7, one of humanity's 300 covert monitoring posts scattered throughout the galaxy. The transparent dome offered an unobstructed view of the Kellyan Empire's capital system, where millions of ships now fled in chaotic desperation. She had watched civilizations rise and fall from these hidden stations for the past 12 years, but never had she witnessed such complete terror. Captain, the Devourer front has accelerated, reported Lieutenant Marcus Webb from the tactical console behind her. They've consumed the Vreni homeworld. Estimate 40 billion casualties in less than 6 hours. Helena closed her eyes briefly. 40 billion lives. The number was incomprehensible. She had joined the observation corps believing their mission was noble: watch, learn, and protect humanity by remaining hidden. But now, as she witnessed the systematic annihilation of every sentient species in the galaxy, that mission felt like cowardice. Relay all data to Fleet Command, she said quietly. They need to see this. Deep within the dead space sector, behind layers of electromagnetic camouflage that had protected humanity for 3 millennia, Admiral Marcus Thorne stood before the United Fleet Command Council. The chamber was carved from the interior of a hollowed asteroid, its walls lined with holographic displays showing every corner of the galaxy. 12 counselors sat in a semicircle, their faces illuminated by the glow of data streams showing civilization after civilization winking out of existence. The Kellyan commander's message has been authenticated, Admiral Thorne announced, his voice carrying the exhaustion of someone who had argued this point for weeks. He knows we're here. Our stealth protocols have been compromised. Counselor James Okonkwo, the eldest member and a direct descendant of the generation that first discovered Earth's natural cloaking phenomenon, shook his head slowly. One compromised probe doesn't justify exposing all of humanity to galactic attention. Our ancestors chose isolation for good reason. Our ancestors, countered Counselor Sofia Ramirez, chose isolation because the galaxy was at war. They watched empires tear each other apart over resources and territory. This is different. This isn't war. This is extinction. The hologram at the center of the chamber shifted, displaying a recording from 3,000 years ago. A younger Earth, just beginning to explore beyond its solar system, had encountered the phenomenon by accident. A research vessel had drifted into a nebula near Sol and simply vanished from every sensor in the galaxy. Not destroyed, invisible. Scientists discovered that Earth's sun produced a unique electromagnetic signature that, when combined with specific nebula particles, created a perfect stealth field. The decision had been swift. Humanity retreated, pulled back every ship, every satellite, every trace of their existence. They seeded the nebula around their entire sector, expanded it artificially, and disappeared from galactic awareness. The observation corps was established, humans who volunteered to live in secret stations, watching the galaxy while humanity built something greater in the shadows. We used their wars to advance, Admiral Thorne continued, pulling up schematics of human ships. Every conflict, every technological breakthrough, every mistake they made, we learned from it. We didn't waste resources fighting each other. We didn't lose billions in pointless territorial disputes. We focused everything on one goal, building a fleet that could protect humanity if we were ever discovered. And now you want to reveal that fleet to save aliens who never knew we existed. Counselor Okonkwo's voice carried centuries of inherited caution. I want to reveal that fleet because it's the right thing to do, Thorne replied sharply. We're not just protecting humanity anymore. We're the only ones who can stop this. On Station Sentinel-7, Helena received an emergency transmission. Her hands trembled as she decoded it, a direct message from Fleet Command, Priority Alpha. She read it 3 times before believing the words. Marcus, she called to her lieutenant. Activate the beacon. Full spectrum broadcast. Captain? Marcus looked confused. That will reveal our position to every ship in this system. That's the point, Helena said, a strange mixture of fear and relief flooding through her. We're done hiding. Across the galaxy, 300 hidden observation stations simultaneously dropped their stealth fields. In the Kellian system, Tevik Mordane's sensors exploded with new contacts. What appeared to be asteroids, debris fields, and cosmic dust suddenly resolved into artificial structures, human stations that had been watching them for generations. Back at Fleet Command, the vote concluded. 8 counselors in favor, 4 against. Admiral Thorne felt the weight of humanity's 3,000-year secret lifting from his shoulders. Send the activation codes, he ordered. All fleets, all ships. Full decloak in 12 hours, synchronized across 50 priority zones. The hangar bays of 2,000 warships began their wake-up sequences. Crews who had trained in absolute secrecy for their entire lives moved to battle stations. Engineers performed final checks on weapons systems that had never been fired in anger. Pilots climbed into fighters designed with technology the galaxy had never seen. In her observation dome, Helena watched Tevik's flagship execute desperate evasion maneuvers as Devourer scouts entered the system. She opened a direct channel to his ship. Commander Mordane, this is Captain Helena Voss of Earth Observation Corps. Hold your position. Help is coming. Tevik's face appeared on her screen, confusion and hope warring in his expression. Uff? I don't understand. Your species has been watching you for 3,000 years, Helena interrupted gently. We know your language, your culture, your history. We know everything. And we're sorry we stayed hidden for so long. But that ends now. The Devourer scouts closed in, their dark energy fields expanding. Tevik's shields began to fail. His crew worked frantically, but everyone knew it was over. Then space itself seemed to tear apart. A massive human battleship materialized directly between the Crimson Horizon and the Devourers, its hull shimmering as stealth fields deactivated. Then another ship appeared. And another. Within seconds, 50 human warships surrounded the Kellian flagship in a protective formation. Admiral Thorne's voice broadcast across every frequency. This is Admiral Marcus Thorne of the United Earth Fleet. To all surviving civilizations of this galaxy, humanity hears your call. We have watched from the shadows long enough. Today, we step into the light. Today, we fight not as hidden observers, but as your allies. The dead space was never dead. It was simply waiting for this moment. Tevik stared at the wall of human ships protecting his vessel, tears streaming down his face. Why? He whispered. Why reveal yourselves for us? Helena's voice came through gently. Because isolation kept us safe, Commander. But it never made us human. That required something else. It required choosing to stand with others, even when it costs us everything. Across the galaxy, in 50 different star systems where the Devourers pressed their final attacks, 2,000 human warships simultaneously dropped their cloaking fields. Where there had been empty space, suddenly stood Earth's hidden armada, the most advanced fleet ever constructed, built in secret over 3 millennia. The galaxy would never forget the moment when the dead space came alive. And the Devourers, for the first time since their awakening, faced an enemy they had not anticipated. The Battle of the Shattered Nebula would be remembered as the moment the galaxy learned fear and hope could exist in the same heartbeat. Commander Tevik Mordane stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, surrounded by human vessels that dwarfed anything the Kellian Empire had ever constructed. Through the viewscreen, he watched as the Devourer vanguard approached, 3 massive entities that consumed light itself, leaving trails of absolute darkness across the stars. His crew had abandoned their posts, convinced death was seconds away. But the humans remained perfectly calm. All ships, activate harmonic shields, Admiral Thorne's voice resonated across the fleet channel. Prepare dimensional anchors. Target acquisition in 10 seconds. Tevik had studied warfare his entire life. He recognized battle commands in 16 different languages. But these terms meant nothing to him. What are dimensional anchors? He asked Captain Helena Voss, whose face appeared on a secondary screen from her observation station. Something we developed after studying the Devourers for the past 6 months, Helena explained, her voice steady despite the approaching darkness. They don't exist entirely in our dimension. They phase between realities to avoid conventional weapons. We built technology to lock them in our space. 6 months? Tevik's voice cracked. You've known about them for 6 months and said nothing? Helena's expression carried profound sadness. We've known about every threat to this galaxy for 3,000 years, Commander. We watched the Cytherian Vrax war consume billions. We observed the Kellian expansion into Mindari space. We documented every conflict, every alliance, every betrayal. And we did nothing because our directive was to protect humanity through isolation. She paused, then added softly, until some of us couldn't stay silent anymore. The lead human battleship, the Eternal Covenant, positioned itself directly in the path of the approaching devourers. Its hull began to glow with blue-white energy that seemed to ripple through dimensions Tevik couldn't fully perceive. Around it, 49 other human ships formed a geometric pattern that looked less like a military formation and more like a scientific array. "Dimensional anchors activating," reported Commander Rachel Torres from the Eternal Covenant's tactical station. Her hands moved across holographic controls with practiced precision. "Target locked. Firing in 3, 2, 1. Brilliant spears of light erupted from all 50 ships simultaneously, converging on the lead devourer. But these weren't conventional weapons. The beams didn't explode or burn. Instead, they wrapped around the darkness like golden chains, pulling, constraining, forcing the entity to solidify into visible form. For the first time since their appearance, a devourer screamed. The sound wasn't audible, it resonated directly in the minds of every living being within a dozen light-years. Tevik collapsed to his knees, clutching his head. His crew cried out in agony. But the humans remained standing, protected by technology that filtered the psychic assault. "Anchors holding," Torres reported calmly. "Entity is fully materialized in our dimension. Switching to kinetic ordnance." The human ships opened fire with weapons that combined particle acceleration, gravitational manipulation, and something the sensors couldn't identify. The devourer's form, now visible as a writhing mass of dark energy with structures that defied geometry, began to fragment. Pieces of it broke away, dissipating into harmless radiation. Within 3 minutes, the first devourer died. Not consumed, not absorbed, but genuinely destroyed. Its death sent shockwaves through the other two entities. They hesitated, the first sign of uncertainty they had shown since their emergence. "All fleet groups, execute Pattern Delta 7, Admiral Thorne commanded." Across the galaxy, in 49 other star systems, human battle groups received the same order. The coordinated assault began. On Station Sentinel-7, Helena monitored 17 different battlefronts simultaneously. Her fingers flew across holographic interfaces, coordinating rescue operations while human warships engaged the devourers. Lieutenant Webb, dispatch medical frigates to the Kellyan evacuation zones. Prioritize civilian transports that have lost engine power. "Captain, we're receiving distress calls from over 400 ships," Webb reported, his voice strained. "We don't have enough frigates to reach them all." "Then we improvise," Helena said firmly. She opened a channel to the nearest human destroyer. "Captain Yuki Tanaka, this is Sentinel-7. I'm transmitting coordinates for 317 disabled civilian vessels in your sector. Your ship has tractor beam capacity for 50 simultaneous pulls. Get them out of the combat zone." "Acknowledged, Sentinel-7, Tanaka responded. "What about the other 267? Helena's jaw tightened. "I'm working on it. Sentinel-7 out." She switched channels, calling for volunteers from observation stations, civilian construction vessels, even deep space mining crews. Humanity had hidden for 3 millennia, but now every available ship was mobilized to save alien lives they had never officially met. Back at the Shattered Nebula, Tevik watched in amazement as human tactics evolved in real time. When the second devourer adapted to the dimensional anchors, learning to resist them, the human fleet immediately shifted strategy. Ships carrying what appeared to be massive tuning forks extended them toward the entity, generating resonance frequencies that disrupted its cohesion. "They're adapting faster than any military force I've ever seen," Tevik whispered to his first officer, who had finally returned to her station. "It's because they've been preparing for every scenario," his officer replied, studying the tactical data streaming across their repaired consoles. "Look at their formations, they're not following standard doctrine because they wrote their own doctrine. 3,000 years of observing every military engagement in galactic history, learning from everyone's mistakes without making their own." The second devourer fell. The third attempted to retreat, phasing toward the edge of the system. But human ships were already there, having predicted the tactic. A massive vessel that Tevik hadn't seen before, a carrier designated Prometheus Dawn, launched what looked like hundreds of small craft. But as they approached the fleeing devourer, Tevik realized they weren't fighters. They were autonomous drones, each carrying a miniaturized version of the dimensional anchor technology. The drones swarmed the devourer like silver insects, latching onto its surface and firing in perfect synchronization. The entity froze mid-phase, caught between dimensions, unable to escape or fight back. The Eternal Covenant delivered the final strike, a concentrated beam that seemed to unravel the Devourer's very existence from multiple dimensions simultaneously. Silence fell across the battlefield. 3 Devourers destroyed in less than an hour. Across the galaxy, similar reports flooded in. Human fleets had engaged Devourer forces at 50 locations and won decisively at 47. 2 battles remained inconclusive, and 1 human battle group had suffered heavy casualties when they encountered an unexpectedly large Devourer cluster. But the tide had turned. For the first time since the darkness began, civilizations had hope. Admiral Thorne transmitted a galaxy-wide message. To all surviving governments, this is Admiral Marcus Thorne of United Earth Fleet. The immediate threat has been neutralized in your local systems. We are deploying humanitarian vessels to assist with evacuation and medical care. We know you have questions about who we are and why we remained hidden. Those answers will come. But first, we have work to do. Thorne out. Tevik found himself aboard the Eternal Covenant 3 hours later, personally invited by Admiral Thorne to discuss coordination of rescue operations. Walking through the human ship's corridors felt surreal. The technology was simultaneously familiar and alien, clearly evolved from the same physical principles that govern all space travel, but refined to a degree that seemed almost artistic. He entered the Admiral's ready room to find a simple space with minimal decoration. Thorne stood before a window showing the stars, his posture carrying the weight of command decisions that affected trillions of lives. When he turned, Tevik saw a face marked by both determination and profound exhaustion. "Commander Mordain," Thorne greeted him with a slight nod. "I apologize for the deception. 3,000 years is a long time to keep a secret." Tevik struggled to find words adequate to the moment. "You saved us. You saved everyone. Why apologize?" "Because we could have helped sooner," Thorne said quietly. "We watched the Cytherian Vrax War consume 4 billion lives over resource disputes that seemed pointless to us. We observed the Kellian-Mindari border conflicts. We documented countless disasters we could have prevented. All because we prioritized our own safety over galactic welfare." "You had no obligation to us," Tevik replied. "We never even knew you existed." Thorne's expression hardened slightly. "That's what we told ourselves. But Captain Voss, Commander Torres, and hundreds of other observation corps officers kept sending reports, kept arguing that isolation wasn't protection, it was abandonment. They were right. When the Devourers appeared, our council finally understood. We couldn't remain hidden and still call ourselves human." A holographic display activated between them, showing a real-time map of the galaxy. Green markers indicated human fleet positions. Red showed remaining Devourer activity. Yellow marked refugee concentrations. "We're proposing something unprecedented," Thorne continued. "A galactic unity council where humanity doesn't lead or dominate, but participates as equals. We have technology to share, but we also have 3 millennia of mistakes to learn from. Your civilizations developed cultures, philosophies, and social structures while actually living through the challenges we only observed. We need that wisdom." Tevik studied the map, seeing human ships moving to protect Kellian colonies, Cytherian worlds, Mindari stations, former enemies now under Earth's protection. "What happens when the crisis ends?" he asked. "When the Devourers are completely defeated? Will humanity return to the shadows?" "That's not my decision alone," Thorne admitted. "But I believe we've crossed a threshold we can never uncross. The galaxy knows we exist. More importantly, we've remembered something we lost during our isolation, the knowledge that survival means nothing if we survive alone." On Station Sentinel-7, Helena reviewed casualty reports with tears streaming down her face. Despite humanity's intervention, over 300 billion beings had died before the fleet could deploy. Entire species had been erased. Worlds that had some with life now drifted as lifeless rocks. "Captain?" Lieutenant Webb's voice was gentle. "We just received a transmission from the Vreni remnant fleet. They are thanking us for rescuing their colony ships. They want to know if they can send representatives to meet with human leadership." Helena wiped her eyes and straightened. "Tell them yes. Tell them all yes. Every species that wants to meet, to talk, to understand, we owe them that. We owe them everything we failed to give for 3,000 years." She looked out at the stars, at the galaxy that would never again see Earth as dead space. Humanity had stepped from nowhere into the light, and there could be no going back. In the months that followed, the Galactic Unity Council formed with representatives from 16 surviving civilizations and humanity. The Devourers were hunted to extinction, their final strongholds destroyed by combined fleets using human technology and alien tactical knowledge. Refugee populations were resettled with human engineering assistance and alien cultural guidance. Commander Tevik Mordain accepted a position as humanity's liaison to the Kellyan government, helping bridge 3 millennia of cultural gap. Captain Helena Voss transferred from the observation corps to the new diplomatic fleet, her expertise in alien cultures now used for cooperation rather than surveillance. Admiral Thorne stood before the first full session of the Unity Council, looking at faces of a dozen different species, all watching humanity with a mixture of gratitude, wariness, and hope. "We begin this alliance acknowledging humanity's failure," he stated clearly. "We chose isolation over engagement, safety over solidarity. We watched you suffer and did nothing. That shame will remain with us. But shame can be transformed into purpose. We propose to dedicate our resources, our technology, and our lives to ensuring no civilization ever faces extinction alone again." The vote was unanimous. The dead space had become the galaxy's foundation for a new age. Humanity had emerged from nowhere to save everything, and in doing so, had finally found what 3,000 years of isolation could never provide, a place in the greater community of intelligent life, earned not through conquest or dominance, but through the simple act of standing with others when it mattered most. The stars shone brighter that night, as if the galaxy itself celebrated the end of its longest silence.